What is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I wanted to talk to you about the pads on the SP404 MKII. Around the communities online I've seen a lot of people asking about these, so I wanted to do a full in-depth video about what they feel like, how they perform, and compare them to the A and the SX as well. So I've got the A next to me here as well, so I can use that for a side-by-side comparison. I'll get it in the shot if I need to do side-by-side fully and I need to show you guys. So the pads on the 404 MKII, what are my initial reaction to them? Well, first of all, you get 16 pads per bank, which is a big improvement. It just gives you that little bit of extra space, those 4 extra pads. And like I've mentioned a few times previously, my workflow is to work in one bank at a time, making a beat usually. So to have 4 extra pads has been an absolute godsend for me. Just gives me that extra little bit of space so I can have some chops, some effects, some vocal stabs and some drums as well. So really like the fact that you get 16 pads. Now, most importantly, what do these feel like? So we need to go back to the SX here to understand this fully really. So here is my SX. I have the fat pad upgrade on mine. So if you're looking at this with the stock pads thinking they look a lot different to mine, yeah, they are. These are a lot thicker and obviously they're also black as well, which isn't stock. So you can see from these that they're kind of like really thick chunks of rubber. And I know that sounds a bit stupid, but that's what they feel like, and they're quite spongy. Now the biggest difference you'll notice when you pick up the MKII is that the pads don't really have any give in them whatsoever. These pads are more like buttons. And I'll do some side shots for you guys so hopefully you can see the difference. When you get onto the MKII, there's not actually any give in them whatsoever. The only give that I can feel in them really is kind of like the material of the button. It's not actually going up and down like a button like it does on the SX and the A. It's just got a little bit of give under the finger just purely because of the sponginess of the button. So these are a lot more like the MPC pads. Obviously they're smaller, we have to have them smaller to fit on this unit. I would say that the MPC pads are slightly more spongy, and that's because they're a little bit thicker. They really have got quite a low profile to them on the unit. So yeah, they're slightly less spongy than the MPC ones and they're slightly smaller. But that being said, I think performance-wise they work really well. And the main reason I like them is because it takes a lot less effort to get the same results as you can on the SX. So previously on the SX you have to work them quite hard to get the sounds out of them, and you have to make sure you're pressing them quite hard so you don't get those like double triggers. On the MKII I really don't feel like I have that problem as much. You don't have to press these as hard to get the sound out of them, and you're much less likely to get that double trigger in as well. So as you can hear there, you can really get a good response out of them. I can almost do triplets with just one finger there. That would have been almost impossible to get that consistently on the SX. Obviously I haven't got this set up, but I'm just trying it now on here, and yeah, it's just way more effort, and I can just tell that that will be a lot harder to achieve the same sort of sound and response as with these pads. Now moving to this section on the side here, the Bus FX Hold external source and sub pad. These are a lot different to the 16 pads in the middle. These ones have got give in them. They're much more like actual buttons like on the old unit. And I would say that's the best comparison to the old one. I think these are very similar in the way they feel to the old one. They've got that kind of triggery feel to them. And they do have play in them, whereas the 16 pads in the middle where you want a finger drum and hit the samples, they don't have that play in them at all. Okay, moving up to the smaller buttons up here. These, again, are like the buttons to the side. They're a lot more spongy. They have a much more button-like feel to them. The smaller ones do actually feel really spongy. I'll be interested to see how they wear over the next sort of 3 to 6 months, maybe 12 months down the line, what these buttons will actually feel like still, whether they still have that good response to them and that sponginess. Even though these are different shapes, all the buttons in this area have the same feel. So they're a lot more spongy than the 16 pads again. They're very similar to the ones down the side, and they've got that more triggery feel like they did on the SX. Moving up to the top of these two units, again, these have been upgraded from stock on my SX. The difference between these two is very negligible. You're not going to get any issues because of the difference in them. The only thing that I will say is that the Mark II has a slightly firmer feel to the buttons up at the top, but you're not going to be doing an awful lot repetitively on these buttons. It's not really dependent on performance, these buttons. You're only going to be triggering them off and on, so there's not too much of a concern about these ones. But yeah, compared to the updated ones that I've got on here, I would say that they're definitely firmer, and they actually have a much nicer response to them. These on the SX are kind of so spongy and you can't really tell that something's happened when you press it, but with these, you do get a lot more feedback when you're pressing those buttons. It does feel firmer, and it feels like you have actually switch something on or switch something off, if that makes sense. I'm definitely enjoying these buttons at the top more, actually. So one more talking point that I do want to mention is the new dial as well. What's this dial like? What's the response like? And is it nice to use? So originally when I first saw this, I was kind of like, I'm not sure about this button. I don't know how it's going to work. Is it going to have a good response to it? It's got this kind of clicking sound to it like the MPC dial. Hopefully you can hear that. And then it also doubles up as a button as well. Now, for the most part, that is actually a really good button. It took me a little while to get used to it. It's got a kind of slightly rubberized texture to it. So it does feel a bit plasticky, but it has got this slight rubber texture to it, so you get a bit of grip on it. Push to enter is quite nice as well. The only thing that I don't like is the effects grab now. So on the SX, this tap tempo button to do the effects grab is way, way better than having to press this down, because it's so much of a button. And because it's so high up as well, it's just a little bit awkward to press that and hold it while you're pressing an effects to do effects grab. So yeah, at first I was not too keen on the idea of this button, but it's gradually grown on me, and it is useful for most of the purposes in terms of finding start and end points on samples, etc, etc. I do worry how that will transport in a bag. That really does seem like something that could get easily damaged in a bag, so I'm definitely going to have to get a case for this if I start taking this out and about. I'm never worried about that with this device. The only thing that has happened is I've got a few scratches on the faceplate, which is unfortunate because that was the last time I actually took it out, and I didn't even end up using it. I took it on holiday with me and I never touched it, so it came back with a massive scratch on it. But yeah, this does seem like it's something that might be susceptible to getting knocked or bent in a bag, so that's another reason I don't really like this dial, is because this unit is obviously focused around being portable, and the fact that they've stuck this big thing on it, which looks easy to break, is a bit of a downside to me. So I think that's everything I can explain about these pads, guys. I think that's the main difference between these ones and from the SX and the A. They're much firmer, and although at first they do feel very different, once you get used to them, you realise that they are an improvement. I certainly think these are a big improvement. They're easier to play, and they have a better response as well. So if you've got any further questions about this particular topic, then feel free to ask in the comments below. I hope this video was useful. I know a lot of you have been asking about this in the comments on various platforms, so I hope this clears up a lot of stuff for you. If you do like what I'm doing here, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to support what I do, you can head to spvids.com, where I've got lo-fi drum packs. The links to that are in the description below. There's a few other ways you can support me as well. But apart from that, guys, like I say, I hope this video was useful, and I'll be back with more content very soon. Peace!